scammer versus scammer showdowns are here, and they're using my investigations to try to hype their fight? All right, then. I guess I'm going to use their fight to hype their crimes. Or at least what should be crimes. Let's break this down.
Yo, you don't read contracts, huh?
No.
No, that's
I
what
get people to do that for me, buddy.
You
Not
got
like
caught
you.
for scamming. Where were those people when you got caught for scamming?
I didn't scam nobody. You
Oh yeah, you literally signed a contract that said I am agreeing to scamming my audience.
You pay your fans back?
Scamming
you pay your fans back?
Dylan, the difference between you and I
is what?
I'm rectifying my situation.
How?
And I didn't scam anyone.
How?
I never made a single token.
Me either.
Dollar. I never sold a token.
Nah,
bro.
My
This will prove
you bought that
itself.
private jet with people's
and I'm
money.
rectifying my situation actively. You scammed your audience on 20 separate occasions.
20 separate occasions.
Community notes checked your ass, bro.
Okay, yeah.
Quote unquote. Dylan Dennis has also scammed his audience on several occasions.
I ratio you every single time I tweet you.
All right, this clip is amazing. It's like Christmas came early for me and Santa got me something I didn't even know I wanted. You know, these two con men are out here trying to decide which of them is the bigger piece of garbage. But not just that, which already brings a smile to my face. But to do it, they have to cite my research into the other person while also denying my research into their own scams. I couldn't have dreamed of a better scenario. They have to have this thrown in their face in what should be a big moment for them. You know, they're have this big fight. It's all exciting. And then they get reminded, hey, you're actually a scammer. Like Logan might have artist in his Twitter bio, but I love to remind him that the real kind of artist he is a con artist. And the funny thing is, the best they can hope for in this scenario is just to make the other guy look worse. Like, nobody looks good here. They just have to say, like, I didn't scam as bad as you did. Like, for instance, Logan literally brings up my website, Scam by Dylan Dennis, where I show 20 crypto projects Dylan promoted for money that are in the toilet now. And Dylan's only response to that is not that he didn't do it. His response has to be, hey, that same guy who caught me also caught you scamming with CryptoZoo. And then Logan has to pretend with this fake smile he plastered on the whole time, like, oh, I'm rectifying it, bro. Which, of course, he's not. He hasn't paid anyone. So this whole thing it's been very special for me to watch my evidence get thrown in their face by another guy who also got caught. But as funny as that moment was for me, I didn't want to just leave it there at this level of drama. Because right now, that's what this is to them. It's drama to use to hype a fight. Which scumbag will get knocked out? Pay to find out. But I think that's the wrong place to leave it, because people are just gonna get carried away with this rivalry thing like, oh, I hate Logan more, so I gotta support Dylan, or vice versa. You know, I've seen a lot of that. They think just because Dylan Dennis is dunking on the guy they don't like, Logan Paul, that he's super cool now. Or they think Dylan's gone too far with Logan's fiance, so I support Logan now. If you think either of those things, you're being conned. I mean, that's the grift. Why do you think they got the two most unlikable people on the planet to fight? They want to make you pick a side, when the truth is they're just both terrible. And so in the spirit of talking about their scams, since they brought it up, I wanted to remind people about that, what they're really about. Dylan Dennis, as we said, promoted 20 crypto scam projects for money. But the funny thing is, I don't know if I emphasized a lot, we stopped looking after 20. I mean, trying to find the total number was like counting raindrops. And here's more scams that we missed just to prove my point. And more, and more, and more, and more. And then on the other side of the table, you have Logan Paul, who tries to pretend CryptoZoo was his only scam, and he never profited from these scams. But that's not true. Take Dink Doink. He pumped and dumped that meme coin and made money. Here's him buying it, then he promoted it, and then he sold it. He also hyped up Elongate, and then dumped that coin.
It's all good. Elongate made me rich. Elongate, baby. Let's go. Elongate token.
Here he is pumping and dumping another coin called F Elon. Made about 100K with that tweet. So this guy is not some one-time scammer or somebody who got mixed up with a bad person. He is the bad person. And there's even stuff I have in my files, which I guess I'll just drop here, even though it probably should be a whole separate series or video. I'm just so bored with this grifter that I can't be bothered. You know, it's just after you document the, fifth or sixth thing, it's kind of hard to get excited about it. But I'll put it here. Did you guys ever hear of when he promoted this crypto coin called OMI?
OMI, I think, is like another one.
Bro.
Am I good?
What are you saying? You have the same weird little coins that no one's ever heard of yet as me.
Let's go.
You have Omi?
Yeah, bro.
Shut the f up.
Shut up, dude. No way. This totally isn't planned at all to pump this coin so we can make money on our young audience. Now, I know you might want to give them the benefit of the doubt there, but that reaction was so fake that even their co-host, Mike, who's Logan's whipping boy, can't help but be skeptical that this was all a little too rehearsed.
But I want a bunch of that because I like that. Pokemon.
Y'all definitely talked about this.
No, I swear on my
so
kids.
On my kids, we've never talked about this. What a charming guy. Well, what if I told you I had video evidence of them talking about buying Omi, colluding behind the scenes before their podcast went live to you guys?
Yo, Ben, we need some more of these Akomis.
Please, bro, please. EOD, if possible.
Yep.
Because we have an episode going tomorrow where we talk very highly of Omi, and I wouldn't be surprised if that caused some traction.
Let's go.
Omi a wagon.
Let's go.
Logan Paul hanging out with the guy he's never talked about Omi with before. Remember, on My Kid's Life. And they say, hey, we need to buy more of these Akomi or Omi. You know, more, as in they've bought it before, meaning they've talked about it. You know, and the guy they're talking to, by the way, is Ben Gadenzi, who is selling these coins to influencers privately at a discount behind the scenes. And then those people, a lot of them would just dump it on the market and hurt retail. And worst of all, like, they mention the fact they know it's going on the podcast. And that's the reason they want to buy it early, because they know, quote, I wouldn't be surprised if that caught some traction. It's just blatant market manipulation. But you know, some people might say, hey, don't be so critical. He did say not financial advice.
Omi, this is not financial advice. You know what Omi is at right now, right?
It's like fractions. It's hundredths of a penny.
0.003. This they didn't pay me to do this. They should. I'll reach out to them, but
We'll take free coins.
See, he said not financial advice and that he wasn't paid for this. Although he said he was going to try to get paid for this. Does that make it a get out of jail free card? Well, let's look at the impact. Obviously, insiders like Logan and Chase got in early and bought it up, realizing that it probably was going to catch some traction when they came out on this coin totally normally and not in a planned way. In fact, one guy sent in $852,000 right before the podcast, saying, we'll be on YouTube and I'll be pushing it hard on my socials as well. Logan then posts the episode with a cash emoji saying, broke to millionaire in 14 days, watch or bankruptcy. You know, more not financial advice. And what happened next? I think anyone could have predicted. This is the price chart of Omi. The dot on the left is where they told you to buy. The miserable line down is where we are now. Omi is down 99%. Meaning if you put in $1, it would currently be worth less than a penny. So yeah, I could go on all day with these pump and dumps, these scams, these promotions that were paid and not disclosed. But the point is, with all this stuff, while it is amusing to watch these scammers call each other scammers, this isn't drama. In most societies, it would be considered, I don't know, like a crime. But, you know, for some reason, the crypto has the Justice Department confused. So I don't know what's going to happen, but Logan and Dylan have a very long history of scamming fans. So I'm not on either of their sides. I hope they face justice for what they've done. And I hope I've hijacked a bit of the conversation, a bit of the hype from their dumb fight.
Hi, I'm Coffeezilla, and I, alongside some other researchers, investigated SafeMoon. And we just published a 40-minute breakdown about why we think this billion-dollar market cap company, or coin, was fraudulent. And the story basically came down to the core promise of SafeMoon. Basically, the money was supposed to be locked up, untouchable, and it wasn't. And I was finally ready to be done with this story when suddenly Thomas Smith, who goes by the name Papa, stepped forward to talk. Papa is the former CTO of SafeMoon and probably the second most important person in their history. And he told me he was ready to take some questions. Now, to be honest, I respect the move. It takes guts to take on hard questions. And what follows is the highlights of our call together. I think we should start with the moment that I confront Papa about the team basically committing fraud. Yeah, and frankly, I mean, to be honest, I'll just be honest because I feel like you know that I'm just trying to get to the truth here. How is this not fraud?
Which part?
The part where, you know, it starts and everything's locked up, guys. Don't worry, the money's locked up. Don't worry, we'll never touch it. If we did, we'd go to jail and get a lawsuit. And then subsequently, everybody who owns the contract touches the LP and takes money. How is that not fraud?
I think at first people, like, we were trying to do the auto locking, and then when the organization started, John leveraged to have it unlocked. So there was a lot of shifting at first.
But no, the LP was taken from before John ever got on board. It was taken from March 5th. From the beginning, money was being taken out of the LP.
You definitely ask those questions, but I don't have answers for you on that.
Well, here, I'll send you the transaction, because I don't want to make I never like to make statements where people.
I know it's all right. It's on the blockchain. It's on the blockchain.
Here, I'll send you the transaction though, just so you can check for yourself. I don't want you to think that this is some kind of a thing. There he is taking 36 trillion SafeMoon out of the LP on March 5th. How is this not fraud? At this time, they're saying it's auto-magically locking up for 4 years. You never have to worry. And then you guys end up with millions of dollars and the investors end up with negative 90%. I mean, you can understand the problem there.
Well, yeah, I see the problem for sure.
Okay, so Papa says he sees the problem. But what does that mean? And how much did Papa get paid for this whole disaster? That's a huge question that I've had from the beginning, and so I asked him about it. How much money did you profit from SafeMoon?
The amount that I got was right around that, like the 2 million mark.
Okay, Papa made $2 million, according to him. Now, I personally think it might be more than that, but throughout our call, that's the number he really stuck to. He said he never had any secret wallets, and any other wallets were just paying lawyers, PR firms, and other groups. He only made $2 million, according to him, and he said Kyle paid him a lot of that. Oh, you got it from, like, Kyle?
Yeah, actually, he gave me $1 million in SafeMoon at one point.
But the question is, where did Kyle get that money from? Because if you listen to Papa or anyone else in SafeMoon, most of SafeMoon's expenses come from Kyle's participation in the pre-sale and not the liquidity pool. Do you pay from the deployer wallet 1 trillion tokens to John, the Gabe wallet?
So the deployer wallet, we actually talked about this a lot in the early days, kind of like buried beneath everything else today now. But if you search for it, I'm sure you'll find it. The deployer wallet, the balance that was in it was one of the early pre-sale. So he threw in like $300 into the launch of it.
Who did?
I don't even think that he was the first buyer. SafeMoon Dev.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was out of pocket for him. Whatever came out of that was out of pocket.
This has always been SafeMoon's story. The money Papa made, Kyle made, Ben Phillips made, the tokens Karoni got, it all comes from the magical pre-sale tokens. But this cannot be true, because when you crunch the numbers, most of Kyle's SafeMoon tokens didn't come from the pre-sale at all. It didn't even come from the tokens that Kyle was constantly buying or selling. To illustrate this, I created a pie chart to show you the proportion of Kyle's SafeMoon holdings. In red is the amount he took from the liquidity pool, in blue is the pre-sale, and in yellow is the net SafeMoon he purchased and then sold. So as you can see, a huge amount of Kyle's tokens came from the liquidity pool, meaning that Thomas has some explaining to do. Kyle, specifically, because I know you got paid and you paid Karoni a bunch of money. So when you actually look at Kyle's LP, or his SafeMoon amounts, he couldn't have provided that had he not been taking money from the LP. So you guys, your payment was coming from liquidity that was supposed to be for the investors.
I mean, I really don't know anything about what was happening with the owner before I had it.
You didn't know he was taking money out?
No.
It seems like the former CTO of a blockchain project is saying he didn't know what Kyle had done on the blockchain, that he had basically been pulling money out of the project from the beginning. Now, I'll be honest, this seems hard to believe. Later, Papa admits it makes him uncomfortable, the idea that maybe some of his funds came from a stolen liquidity pool.
That's what I was told at the time anyway. You know, you got it from the pre-sale. So I'm uncomfortable with that, if it didn't come from the pre-sale.
Right. I mean that's the whole problem. I agree with you. So I actually agree with you. If SafeMoon Dev had bought it in the pre-sale and he had decided to give you guys a payout and that's how you guys made your millions, we wouldn't be talking, right? The problem is that there was an express thing that was the whole purpose of SafeMoon. The whole idea of SafeMoon was we're going to go safely to the moon. It's in the name. How are we going to go safely to the moon? Well, these other DeFi projects rug. We're not going to rug. What's not going to make us rug? We're auto-magically locking the LP, except no, we aren't. We're taking from the LP, and that's actually how we're making our millions of dollars.
It's definitely obvious that that stance changed.
Now, here's where our conversation takes a big turn. We've already discussed the whole I didn't realize this was from the liquidity pool argument, and here comes their next argument. Basically, SafeMoon had pivoted and changed their story, and they had told people that they were going to be taking money out of the liquidity pool. But is that true?
It's definitely obvious that that stance changed. I was locking the LP myself. I was doing it.
But that stance changed. April 21st was your all-time high. You guys were still.
It's like the day before that I locked the 250.
Right. But what I'm saying is, you guys were still changing the story at the time of your all-time high. So even if it changed, it's sort of like too little, too late. So many people are on this ride. You know what I mean? See, that's the whole problem with this story. Even though SafeMoon eventually told people that they would be taking money out of the liquidity pool, this argument doesn't stand up because they'd been taking the money out before they told anyone. That's the critical issue. March 5th is the first time they took money out, and their official stance was still changing in April. Papa didn't seem to see this as too big of a problem, though.
We were pivoting often in those days. So we started out on a WordPress page that definitely couldn't handle this stuff. There was a lot of shit on there that shouldn't have been there to begin with.
But even your page up in April was LP. There's something about auto locking LP or LP locked on PancakeSwap for 4 years. Blah blah blah. You're talking about auto locking LP. People think you're auto locking it up. I mean,
I was not making any. Like, I never made any claims as to automatic or manual. Like, I was showing people, I was telling people when I was doing it. So we did it all together in Discord.
Right. No, I understand that. Maybe you were like saying to people who asked, but the organization as a whole had made a certain representation, right? So the organization said, okay.
Oh, back then, there wasn't. I don't even think there was an organization fully made yet.
Fine, a website. Somebody was saying that this thing's auto-locking. This is the whole thing behind SafeMoon. I mean, it's in the name, right? And y'all had it in your white paper about the locking, right? The auto-locking, you did. So this is the whole problem that I'm struggling with is I just keep coming back to this feels like fraud. This is fraud. I mean, how could it not be? You guys are millionaires. Your investors are down 90%, and you guys are millionaires directly from a representation that was false.
I mean, we did tell people when we used it. I didn't make any false. We did change things a lot.
Now, honestly, this is where things started to kind of go in circles. And so I'll just leave it to you to decide how you want to feel about this. We changed it over time idea. Now, I want to move our conversation to talk about John Caroni. Did you ever suspect Caroni of fraud?
Yes.
Holy shit. Wait, what? You did win.
I left, right? Like, when he started threatening to ruin the lives of the people that have been with me for 10 years, when all that shit, the fake articles about Jack, the way that he treated everybody on the way out. I mean,
now SafeMooners are going to say, oh, you got kicked out.
That's what they try to say about everyone. They didn't say it about me, but I know firsthand that they were trying to prepare a statement. And then their PR firm talked them down.
Wow. Papa says he suspected Caroni of fraud based on how he treated his fellow employees and said he routinely threatened his coworkers. I continued to dig about this, and I also tried to understand more about SafeMoon's true origins, specifically Caroni's origins. So, is it true that Caroni lived in a van or like trailer before SafeMoon?
Yes. Where did that come from? But it wasn't really. It was for him. It was it was a bougie trailer. He did it purposefully.
Well, I'm just saying it's not like he wasn't rich before SafeMoon.
No.
Okay, I'm just wondering. All right, now I want to show you something. What I'm about to show Papa next are the multiple $1 million payments to John Caroni from Bitmart. Because the idea is, after establishing Caroni was living in a trailer around the time that he stumbled into SafeMoon, suddenly he's being paid millions of dollars? Like, how? Thomas seemed equally perplexed.
Jesus Christ, what is that?
That's just a couple of several $1 million payments to Caroni. That's $6 million right there.
When was that? That was in
June
last year.
Yep.
Yeah. See, I knew a bunch of this was happening, but I didn't know it was going to him.
So you knew somebody was profiting from like.
Well, my understanding was that it was for SafeMoon, right?
This was just weird. How could Papa not have known Caroni's wallet was doing all of this? Because to begin with, he was one of the people who told me that it was Caroni's wallet. Before our call, he told me he knew it was Caroni's wallet immediately based on the last 4 digits of the wallet, 6ABE. He said in a DM, "Hey yo, that 6ABE is John," and then later told me this. How'd you also know that?
Oh no! As soon as someone else pasted it to me, and as soon as I saw a 6ABE, I knew exactly what wallet it was instantly.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you hear, I think forever ago there were a few hints to it back at the AMAs and other, like Discord discussions, where he'd talk about Gabe, and people thought it was a person, but it's really just an address.
Oh.
And that's it. So like, kind of like, the lead speak, Gabe. Yeah.
Smart. Yeah,
not very smart, actually.
Now, after telling me this wallet was under John's control, Papa would later tell me he remembered this as a corporate account.
It's supposed to be a SafeMoon or a Tano account.
He then later clarified in DMs, quote, that wallet is a Tano wallet, not a SafeMoon wallet, confirmed. Now, as a reminder, Tano is a company John owned and controlled. Here's the Articles of Incorporation. He's the #1 member. And most importantly, he's not putting the money back in the LP like he's supposed to. To be honest, Papa's surprise about all this stuff in Caroni's wallet is just hard to believe. And maybe he was just playing dumb, I don't know. His explanation for a lot was the fact that basically John ran the show and he was basically just an employee.
It's not like any of those decisions were even remotely mine. So if misrepresentations, dude, I get marching orders. You got your boss that's asking you every 5 minutes if they're tracking what you're saying, or if you're tracking what they're saying. You know what I mean?
So you felt like you were just like an employee.
Well, yeah, I was a Tano employee the whole time.
Even though you were the CTO, weren't you the CTO?
I was never a SafeMoon employee. And despite having a title or whatever, it's through the management contract with Tano, which was a gigantic. That's another mess that I need to deal with privately, John.
And this idea was a recurring theme. Papa told me that basically everything he did with the SafeMoon contract wasn't his idea, it was John's. This includes their Bitmart deal and how they used the liquidity pool. Papa told me that part of the way they were making money with Bitmart was a money market account. He told me they sold SafeMoon to Bitmart in exchange for money. I asked them where they got that SafeMoon. What does that mean? They bought it OTC over the counter from SafeMoon, but
yeah, it's just a private.
How did SafeMoon have that SafeMoon to sell? Where did they get that from?
Right. So the migration, so when Pancakes, there were a ton of migrations.
Mm-hmm.
The V1 to V2 Pancake swap. So it's V1 SafeMoon with V1 PCS, and the migration to V2 PCS.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happened, we had to move the liquidity over, and we had to find kind of weird ways. We had to pull liquidity in order to move it over to V2, and in doing so, there was a lot of SafeMoon that came out. So there was an excess
that wasn't put in V2.
Yeah.
Why wasn't it put in V2? It just
it was given to. Or well, not given, but John sold it to the I guess you could. I don't even know how to classify what you would say this transaction is, but so because the exchanges need to obtain the SafeMoon, they got it from that pool, and the safe moon was intended to be sent to the holders anyway. So we figured, the liquidity is still the liquidity.
Now, I'll be honest, the liquidity is still the liquidity is a pretty weird answer. Basically, they're saying those millions of dollars we made, it's all just part of the liquidity. It's all legit. And I had to ask Thomas about this, where he thought this money that was being generated came from. So I'm like not satisfied by this. Like the exchange deal makes no sense to me. I don't understand why millions of dollars or 55 million needs to go to Bitmart for exchange deals. This makes no sense to me. And what John was saying, apparently, is he told someone with the Bitmart deal, they were about to be put into a new tax bracket, right?
He said what?
He said, we're about to be put into a new tax bracket. Why would he say that if he wasn't going to personally profit from it?
Right.
So
that sounds like something you would say.
Here's my question. Like, okay, explain this to me. Because obviously we both know money can't come from nowhere. So let's say if you're just migrating the funds from V1 to V2, no money is generated for SafeMoon. If you migrate V1 to V2, but you do it in that weird way where you put a buy order and you end up with millions of dollars of SafeMoon, and then you sell that SafeMoon to an exchange, all of a sudden money has been created for SafeMoon. And you're telling me that has no price impact for the people of SafeMoon? How's that possible?
The price, I guess, the value impact will come from volatility, but only on the V1, V2 PCS.
The money has come from somewhere. It didn't come from nowhere, right?
Right. Yeah.
How can that be? How could SafeMoon be generating free money?
Right, and the same argument could be made about an unlocked LP in John's hands. So the reason why he wants it unlocked is so that he can use it.
Right.
So he doesn't have to go through this process, likely. So that's a lot easier than just, So these other exchanges were so willing to do this deal because SafeMoon comes with they've come with a lot of volume.
Yeah, they're going to get a ton in fees, right? So so again,
if he used it for something other than what he should have been using it for, the man should be called out.
So here's what I'm seeing. Like, SafeMoon is making millions. The exchanges are making millions.
Yeah.
Who's losing millions?
Right. The people who take the fees.
The investors.
That's where all the money came from.
Yeah. There it is, folks. Money doesn't come from nowhere, if you can take anything from this video. If SafeMoon suddenly is making millions, it has to come from somewhere. And if it's from the LP, that's a problem because, again, that was supposed to be locked up. Now, I also talked to Papa about the fees Bitmart stated they were taking to give back to the development team to be placed in the LP. And I wanted to know, were they doing that? So the second part of this is that I got this from their website. So they say that, and I understand maybe they weren't perfect about this, but they say they charge trading fees and that 5% will be directly redistributed. Okay, we know that. That's reflections. And then it says 5% will be returned to the developers to be added back to the liquidity pool for SafeMoon tokens.
Oh. Yeah, that's something that happened after that's the V2 thing. So I left before V1 was discontinued.
No, this is from April 2nd, 2021.
Oh.
So this should be last year.
Okay, so that's not really how we did it though, up until V2 when Swap and Liquify was turned on. So we only ever manually transferred LP for when if the LP contracts needed to be upgraded, but still there's a ton of locked liquidity on V1 still.
Right.
And it's going to be there for like 4 years. We've discovered a few ways that can be withdrawn still. There obviously people have found bugs in the V1 and V2 contracts. V2 contract can be updated. It's a proxy, so you can change whatever is behind the proxy. The trick is maintaining the balance or balances.
So you said you guys really didn't do it that way. Do you mean by that you weren't paid by Bitmart, or you didn't put the whatever you were paid by Bitmart back into the LP?
Oh no, I mean like Bitmart didn't pay SafeMoon to list with Bitmart.
No, I understand that, but they say they're going to give you guys tokens. So they're saying basically, look, every time you trade on Bitmart, we're taking 10% of it. 5% we're giving back to the Bitmart holders, and 5% we're giving back to SafeMoon to put into the LP.
Yeah, so all of on each of the centralized exchanges, the way that it's supposed to work, if tokenomics are, quote unquote enabled, it simulates the V1 process where 10% fee, and then half of it goes to the market making, and then the other half goes to the holders. And obviously there were problems with that along the way because it wasn't automated. But because of that process, rather than them just collecting it and doing it themselves, all of them opted to purchase it from SafeMoon because it was easier for them. They didn't have to upgrade their systems and deal with devs and all this other stuff.
But where did that other 5% go is what I'm saying. So you're saying, like, in
market
theory...
making. I have no idea what happened inside the market making accounts.
Well, that's not a very good answer. Okay, so Papa says he doesn't know what happened inside the market making accounts, but he says he doesn't think they were putting it into the LP. Again, a massive problem. As I said, I believe this is a fraud, no matter how you slice it, because of the simple premise that they said the funds were locked up, they weren't, and they used a bunch of it. Now, they did pivot this stance later, but again, we've addressed this. They had been taking money well before that, and the company had reached values of like billions of dollars by the time they had disclosed it. As for the specifics of what happened with things like Bitmart, payments to Kyle, a lot of those questions remain unanswered. I think the only person who can truly tell us is John Caroni, and like I've said, I've reached out for over a month and he has yet to respond. Meanwhile, the person who is talking, I'm grateful to him, but I find his answers less than satisfying. What do you think should be done about this?
Well, I think the first thing that happens is we go to court.
But here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying. Do you think it's right for you to have $2 million, for Kyle to have however much he has, for John to have millions of dollars, all you guys to walk away millionaires, and all your investors, a lot of them are down 90%. Do you think that's fair?
Well, I know you're frustrated and you've got a lot of really good points. From my perspective, which I should probably be only answering on for that part, is I perform a service for money. I'm a dev. I've always been a dev. This is what I do. I've been doing it for a long time. So if I work out a deal with the org that's controlling me to get paid for something, I'm providing real value on my end.
Well, I guess that's their last defense. I deserve the money because I worked for it. I personally don't find that too credible. But I want to know what you think in the comments below. And that's basically it. Pump the stock. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Welcome back to How to Lose $1 Billion with FutureNet. Last time we left off, optimism was high. The company was doing great. FutureNet was at its peak.
Stawiamy posty, lajkujemy, udostępniamy, wysyłamy wiadomości, zarabiamy, kupujemy, matryce zapraszamy, znajomych, FutureNet, polecamy i zarabiamy.
But things are about to take a turn for the worse. And no, by worse, I don't mean that. I'm talking about the fall of FutureNet. Now, it's hard to exactly pinpoint where FutureNet started falling apart, but some people would say it's when AdPro 2.0 came out. And as part of that, they shut down the system for development for a very long time and just stopped paying people altogether. Now, obviously, not paying people what you owe them has a way of injecting cynicism into your ecosystem. But another big thing that happened was one of their top promoters, Ryan Conley, really had a falling out with the company. They accused him of cross-promoting other schemes and scams to their users. Now, it's important to know who he is because we're going to be talking a lot about Ryan. So as a way of introduction, here's Ryan introducing FutureNet to a bunch of people in Africa.
You guys listen, please listen. There is a new Facebook out there that pays the people to use it, and it will save all of Africa with you guys knowing about what we're bringing to your country. We're going to show you how to make a lot of money so you do not have to live here anymore. So you guys have food for your children, okay?
Yes, that's Ryan Conley shushing people and telling them that their poverty is no more. They can leave Africa once they join FutureNet.
We're going to show you how to make a lot of money so you do not have to live here anymore.
Now, Ryan's really interesting because he's sort of a breed of fake guru that we have not talked about before. He's not a member of FutureNet by any means in the official sense, but he's what we might call a promoter of schemes and scams. On his YouTube and Facebook, he's constantly promoting new schemes to be a part of, and he's just always hopping from one thing to another. So after cross-promoting a bunch of other scams to his followers on FutureNet, Ryan is actually kicked out of FutureNet because they said they can't have people cross-promoting on their platform, and Ryan goes off, and it's war.
You were the one that started this war, and I'm gonna finish it.
And he admits several really huge things. The first accusation he makes is that the purpose of FutureNet's foundation is just to appease the conscience of Roman and Stefan because they felt bad about how much money they were making.
You told me directly that the only reason why the FutureNet Foundation was created was to make Stefan Morgenstern and Roman Zemian feel good about the amount of money that they have made. How pathetic is that?
Whoa, that's a big accusation. I wonder who he's going to report them to.
Do you have any idea when this information is presented to the United Nations? Do you not think that you guys have never even been to the United Nations at all?
Hey, you guys in the comments right now, I bet you guys have never even been to the United Nations. I bet that's how sophisticated you guys, shows what you know.
The second thing we learned is that Ryan basically admits that the business model is unsustainable.
You really think this is a business model that is going to last forever? You have another thing coming.
And this is the same guy who's telling a group of people in Africa that, you know, this business model is going to save them from hunger.
So you guys have food for your children, okay? There is a new Facebook out there that pays the people to use it.
The Facebook that pays the people. And by the way, we don't just get admissions in this rant, we also get some pretty hilarious moments. One of which is Ryan supposedly knowing the art of war, and so you don't want to go to war against Ryan.
I've listened to the art of war all day long, and I would not engage war against you, honestly, because you are if I did not think I could win, I am throwing my sword at you, just like the Gladiator movie. Are you entertained?
Yes, we are very entertained.
Another thing Ryan Conley accuses FutureNet of is actually embezzling money from their customers and kicking people out and taking over their accounts and taking the money and misappropriating those funds.
I want them to return the millions of dollars that they have stolen. I have proof that these accounts of these millionaires within FutureNet who have been terminated, that they have actually switched out the information, the Bitcoin wallet addresses of these accounts that they have stolen, they have switched out the email address. FutureNet has done this. And they are withdrawing the money out of these accounts, and it's going to other things. We have this all documented.
This was all the beginning of the end. Now, even though Ryan Conley would eventually make amends with the leaders at FutureNet and go back to kind of promoting them, it was all over. Warnings from Poland, which is where Stefan and Roman were based, started coming out about this Ponzi scheme, and as of 2020, the company's basically done. They haven't totally admitted defeat, but nobody's posting to their YouTube channel anymore. Stefan and Roman have basically ghosted everyone, and nobody's really getting paid. Their total collapse is all but certain. Now, from this point, I feel like there are three really important questions to answer, which is what happens to all the people involved? We really have three distinct parties here. We have promoters like Ryan Conley. What happens to them when something like this happens? We have Stefan and Roman, the founders. What happened to them? And we also have basically everyone else, the real victims of this entire thing. The aftermath for Ryan Conley is basically nothing. He's just gonna jump on to the next gimmick, scam, whatever you wanna call it, and he's gonna promote that until that runs into the ground, and then he's gonna promote something else. Stefan and Roman are fine as well. They have loads of money now, and this really wasn't even their first scam. Stefan Morgenstern, he promoted something called One Line Online before this, where he took a bunch of people's money.
My name is Stefan Morgenstern. I am from Germany. Yes, I'm 23 years in the network marketing industry.
And this was just another in a long line of scams. Not to say that they aren't in a little bit of trouble, though. They're under investigation in Poland, and according to reports, have fled the country using Gambian passports to lay low for a while. But all things considered, because this is sort of an international crime where most of the victims are poor people who don't have money to sue them, they're probably gonna be fine. Honestly, the real victims are everyone else. Everyone who actually bought into this company. I joined a class action lawsuit chat room in order to try to talk to some of these victims, and their stories are absolutely horrifying. FutureNet has absolutely ruined people's lives, whether people invested large amounts of money, small amounts of money. A lot of the effects on people's lives were absolutely devastating. This guy deposited 70,000 euros right as the bubble started to burst with FutureNet, and he says it affected his relationships and ruined his wife's trust in him. This victim lost $300, which may not sound like a lot, but he's from a country where the hourly wage is 30 cents. Which means, according to him, that $300 was 8 months of his savings that he lost. And some people, it didn't just affect monetarily. Reports of suicide started coming out from Korea, and there was a person in the chat room from Thailand who had 2 members of her team commit suicide as well. This was absolutely devastating to people's lives. Now, unfortunately, I wish I could tell you that FutureNet was unique. It's not. Ponzi schemes are super common right now, especially in poor countries where people are desperate to find a way to get ahead. And sadly, the promise of free money is a tempting one, especially when made from promoters like Ryan Conley, who can make these things sound like a sure thing.
And it will save all of Africa with you guys knowing about what we're bringing to your country. We're going to show you how to make a lot of money so you do not have to live here anymore. So you guys have food for your children, okay?
Sadly, however, it's not. And most of these people are like sheep being led to the slaughter. The real wolves are the founders of these companies who end up absconding with a bunch of the money, and people like Ryan Conley who just jump from that platform to the next platform, the next thing that they're gonna promote, pushing more and more people into these disasters. Now, it's not to say that people like Ryan Conley, the people pushing these big scams, are necessarily malicious about it, but their actions have terrible consequences. Because actually, Ryan was actually the one who started the FutureNet class action lawsuit chat room and tried to organize people together. So I consider that to be a good thing, but at the same time, in this chat room where all these victims are, all these people that maybe he brought into the company that ended up losing all this money, Ryan decides that, it may be time for a new opportunity.
I've been working on this project and have identified a technology using augmented reality that could really make us a legitimate business opportunity and make things right with everyone. So I hope you guys do not feel that this is out of place for me to share the information down below. And at 3 p.m. today, I have a phone call with the augmented reality team, Vapor Technologies out of California. It's spelled VAPR. And this would be the perfect fit to replace FutureAd Pro. And in the video, it'll explain the rest of this, what is possible.
And so the cycle begins again. I hope the How to Lose $1 Billion series has served as sort of a guide and a warning to those of you considering joining a Ponzi scheme, because the truth is, they can look super compelling. They can be paying out people for years. In fact, I talked to one FutureNet victim who brilliantly explains why FutureNet caught up so many people into its web.
People put in like crazy amounts because FutureNet ran successfully for like 4 years before it fell. So after like two and a half years, also the skeptical people were like, yo, it's running. So let's go in, all in. And people put so much money into it.
That's right. Skeptical people end up getting taken in because these things last just long enough to overcome your skepticism. You may not understand how it works, but who cares, because it's paying out exactly until it doesn't anymore and everyone loses their money. I hope you guys stay safe from scams like this. This is far from the last one, and crypto scams are popping up left and right. Please save your money And as always,
don't forget to smash like and
the FTX situation just got much worse, and billions of dollars are now hanging in the balance. It's so big that even the White House has addressed it.
Recent news further underscores these concerns and highlights why prudent regulation of cryptocurrencies is indeed needed.
Wow. Now, I'm going to try to explain all of what just happened in the last 24 hours. The swirling rumors, the doomers, and the bloomers. Wait, I'm sorry, the Bloomberg allegations, and everyone else's allegations too. Because when something this big happens, it becomes difficult to sort through what is provably true and what is sort of speculation. So where I can, I'll be telling you what I'm sure about and what I'm not, and I'm even going to share some insider knowledge I learned from an Alameda Research employee who leaked a lot of interesting information to me. So let's get into this. But first, hello from the future, guys. It's a quick interruption to this video to say that a lot has happened in the last 24 hours while editing this, and a lot of the information has changed. The story, just basically kept going. And so I've made an entire extra video attached to the end of this one covering the latest information. Please forgive me, I haven't slept a lot. Buckle up, though, because there's stolen billions, romantic affairs, flights to Argentina, possibly. But for now, just enjoy a much more well-rested Coffeezilla, and I will see you in a bit. Last time we spoke, FTX, one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world, was in deep trouble. And their biggest competitor, Binance, was planning to buy them out for a bailout. Now, initially, this was believed to be a short-term issue only for FTX. CZ, their competitor, called it a significant liquidity crunch. This basically means FTX had the money, just they didn't have it right now. To make an analogy, imagine I owed you cash but only had gold. That's a liquidity crunch. I can't just give you gold, I have to go sell it first, but crucially, I have the money, it's just locked up. Now, depending on how hard it is to immediately sell, this small issue can turn into a very big one, which FTX figured out when $5 billion in withdrawals came in one day, and they just didn't have the money. And so that's what this buyout was all about. Binance stepped in and said, hey, we'll cover their short-term issue in exchange for buying out their long-term assets for pennies on the dollar, which is a pretty brilliant move when you consider that Binance's CEO kind of caused the whole problem in the first place. Which if you want to know more about that, you can go watch our last video. However, I told you guys in that video that this buyout was kind of shaky at best because it was non-binding, which meant at any point, Binance could just walk away if they didn't like what they saw. And that's exactly what happened. Binance recently said they're walking away from the deal and that the reason was based around latest news reports regarding mishandled customer funds and alleged U.S. agency investigations. And this absolutely ruined FTX's credibility overnight. Because all of a sudden, the conversation around FTX turned from liquidity crunch to insolvency and fraud. Because look, there's a big difference between the two. Liquidity issues is when I don't have the cash for you right now, but I have the asset somewhere. Insolvency is when I don't have the cash and I have nothing else either. So if FTX was illiquid, it's a great deal. If FTX is insolvent, it's a nightmare, which is why a lot of people thought Binance backed out of the deal, with both Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal reporting a multi-billion-dollar shortfall. Now, Binance responded to this saying that the issues are beyond our control or ability to help, and this is very bad news for FTX. It's bad news for all of crypto because your average investor is about to get wrecked. Not only that, the CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, may be in a lot of trouble because it turns out he was lying to everyone when he said that FTX is fine and that FTX had funds to cover all client holdings. He said this basically minutes before disaster. Now, he has since deleted those tweets, which might be a good idea because they probably are criminal, but we'll get back to that in a second because first, I want to go back to Binance's earlier statement about mishandled customer funds. What did they mean by that? And how can a crypto exchange as big as FTX become insolvent? It's like hearing that a casino went insolvent. It's like, how did you guys lose money? You win no matter what. These crypto exchanges make money on the fees. Whether you win or not, whether it goes up or down, they're making money. So how could you have lost billions of dollars as one of the biggest crypto exchanges? That's the question. And this is where Alameda Research comes in. So as a quick explanation, SBF's empire is actually incredibly complicated. Like way more complicated than even complicated firms. Like this has been compared to the Lehman Brothers. Well, the Lehman Brothers corporate structure is way simpler. SBF's web of companies is really difficult to untangle. But really, there are two companies that matter the most.
Alameda Research and FTX. FTX is the crypto exchange we've talked about, and Alameda Research is a small trading firm. Now, these two companies, though they're technically distinct entities, have always been sort of unusually close. Some have speculated unethically close. But their CEO claims that indeed they are separate entities. But with FTX seemingly becoming insolvent, that relationship is now under scrutiny. And it turns out they may have shared more than an office. They may have shared information and also been sharing client funds. And this is where this whole mishandled client funds allegation comes in, because FTX told users that their digital assets belong to them and wouldn't be traded. It's explicitly laid out in their terms of service. Quote, you control the digital assets in your account. FTX Trading does not represent or treat digital assets in users' accounts as belonging to FTX Trading. And title to your digital assets shall at all times remain with you. But turns out this wasn't the case at all, because according to an Alameda Research employee who came to me anonymously, apparently they had more access to FTX than previously disclosed. In fact, not only did they have access to FTX's back end, they managed withdrawals for FTX and had a giant line of credit that they could draw on, which seems like partially may have been users' funds, something that no separate entity would normally have. Now, bear in mind, that is coming from one employee, but it's backed up by another source, the Wall Street Journal, who reported that FTX extended loans to Alameda using money that customers had deposited on the exchange for trading purposes, which they just said they wouldn't do. Quote, it was a decision that Mr. Bankman-Fried described as a poor judgment call. But I would disagree with Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried. I would not describe that as a poor judgment call. A poor judgment call is showing up to a Zoom meeting looking like this. When you take clients' funds and do exactly what you told them you would not do with them, that's theft, and that is fraud. Now, I know this is already all insane, but we've only explained sort of half the story, how clients' funds were being used by Alameda. But how were they lost? Because new reports show that Alameda may owe FTX $10 billion. How did they lose that $10 billion? Because these were supposed to be the crypto geniuses, right? Well, this is unfortunately where we have to kind of get a mix of facts and speculation. As I said, I'm going to tell you guys what we're sure about, what we're not. So losses likely come from 4 places that I've heard about. Number 1 is just FTX themselves spending insane amounts on advertising with stadiums, Tom Brady, and a crazy number of YouTube influencers who apparently were shilling FTX. The second place they likely lost money was that Alameda invested heavily into FTT tokens and a lot of their own projects, which when FTX went down, basically went to zero, or at minimum couldn't be sold very quickly. The third way they lost money was that Sam Bankman-Fried tried to bail out all of crypto in the summer. People like BlockFi, Voyager Digital, Skybridge Capital, which led to huge losses. And then when Alameda found itself with big losses around the time of a lot of these companies' collapse, number 4, Alameda took out a $4 billion line of credit from FTX, a $4 billion loan, essentially. And what did they give FTX in return to back up this money? FTT tokens and Robinhood shares. Guys, which the FTT tokens is the crazy part because FTX, that's their token. So it's basically giving nothing. This is all according to Reuters, and it's just insane. Many financial commentators are calling this dark magic, but I think Matt Levine of Bloomberg put it best. He says it's possibly illegal, and it's like a bank lending a lot of money against its own stock. The problem obviously being that if you face a liquidity crunch or people lose confidence in you, then these FTT tokens go to zero and now your clients aren't backed. So it's extremely risky behavior at the best. And like he said, possibly illegal. I'd say probably illegal. So it was this incestuous relationship between FTX and Alameda that led to their downfall. And while we don't know the full extent of their losses and what is just they can't find the liquidity right now, estimates right now are going from billions to $10 billion at the highest I've seen, which is just wild. And I feel so bad for the victims here. But I find the collapse unbelievably ironic in all of this because SBF was lecturing Congress about how crypto exchanges were so much better than the traditional financial system. In 2008, it was unregulated. It was so risky. But it turns out he was doing all of the same things.
Last thing that I'll say is if you look at what precipitated some of the 2008 financial crisis, you saw a number of bilateral, bespoke, non-reported transactions happening between financial counterparties, which then got repackaged and re-leveraged again and again and again, such that no one knew how much risk was in that system until it all fell apart. If you compare that to what happens on FTX or other major cryptocurrency venues today, there's complete transparency about the full open interest. There's complete transparency about the positions that are held. There's a robust, consistent risk framework applied, and we're excited to work with the CFTC on our U.S. licensed and regulated venue.
Yikes. Does the phrase bespoke, non-reported transactions happening between financial counterparties, which then got repackaged and repackaged again and again to such an extent that no one knew how much risk was in the system? Does that sound familiar to anyone? Because it sounds exactly like what SBF did. You know, the only difference between SBF and these banks, which he says were so bad, was that SBF preached us how good he was. He was the generous billionaire.
The guy you see next to me is the most generous billionaire in the world.
Well, I guess that was a lie. But we still kind of have to answer the final question to all of this, which is that it seems like obviously they're insolvent, but how much of it is insolvency versus liquidity squeeze? We're still figuring that out, to be honest. SBF, even after making a thread today admitting that he effed up and he should have done better, still claims that FTX has assets that are higher than their clients' deposits, basically saying they are solvent still, kind of. But honestly, I think this is almost definitely another lie from Sam Bankman-Fried, given that A, we know that a lot of their assets are in illiquid tokens like FTT, which that real value is probably zero. And also B, well, this guy has already proven himself to be a liar and we shouldn't trust him. So I just default to assuming that he's lying. My guess is they're insolvent by at least a few billion, maybe the full 10 billion. We don't know. SBF is now seeking to raise 9.4 billion in an emergency fundraise, which I think speaks volumes to that. I don't think they'll get it. Brian Armstrong of Coinbase has said, I don't know why investors would put money into this now, which is a nice way of saying, I don't know why anyone put money into this ever. But not everyone, though, seems skeptical. Amazingly, there still are some believers. Bill Ackman, for example, believed SBF's apology. In a now deleted tweet, he responds that you have to give SBF credit for his accountability here. I have never seen a CEO take responsibility as he does here. It reflects well on him and the possibility of a more favorable outcome for FTX. But what accountability is he talking about? I don't see that at all. SBF is explicitly dodging responsibility about his criminal lies about reserves. Remember, we talked about how he said, assets are fine. We have the full amount to cover client deposits. But now look at his new accounting of events. Because what he says now is that he messed up and mistakenly thought that they had zero leverage and 24x the needed liquidity. In reality, he says he was wrong and that they were leveraged 1.7x and didn't have the necessary liquidity. And look, at first glance, I understand why that would appear like he's taking, responsibility here, until you realize that what he's really telling you is that he sucks at his job. Because how can you not know as the CEO, as this genius, how levered up you are? You're this genius trader. Isn't it awfully convenient that you're suddenly bad at your job when it would be criminal if you actually knew? Because those are the two options. If he had known he was lying, that's criminal. So he's basically saying, well, I didn't know. I was just wrong. I'm just terrible at my job. And I'm just not buying that. My opinion of it is this. SBF is a shark who knowingly put his own customers' funds at risk to save his trading firm, Alameda Research. He did this without telling them while giving them worthless FTT tokens as collateral, which he knew was risky. He then lied about it right up until the last possible moment, and when it finally came out that what he did was likely criminal, he goes, oh, oops, I didn't know that things were so bad. It's ridiculous, and anyone who believes this, well, I have a multi-billion-dollar crypto exchange to sell you. Anyways, he ends this thread by saying that Alameda Research is winding down trading, and he also addresses CZ of Binance, saying at some point I might have more to say about a particular sparring partner, so to speak, but glass houses. So for now, all I'll say is, well played, you won. Which just strikes me as so weird of a statement. He talks about this as if it's a sparring partner, as if it's all a game. This is not a game to be won and lost. This is billions of dollars of people's real money that you just lost. Correction. He might have stolen it, or maybe one of his executives did, or a hacker did. We don't know for sure. Welcome to the future. It sucks here. Guys, as I said, a lot has changed, and I want to cover it. For one, SBF declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy for all his companies, including FTX US, which he said was fine, and many influencers promoted. See this video for more, but it basically looks like they're all in deep trouble. Even worse, news around Alameda has gotten much more dire. See, originally we thought this team was a bunch of geniuses in crypto. Now it's coming out they were more like a gang of kids who all dated each other. This report comes from CoinDesk. Alameda employees were in romantic relationships with each other, and there's speculation that the CEO of Alameda, Caroline Ellison, became the CEO maybe because she dated Sam Bankman-Fried. Incidentally, she also has been revealed to be a big fan of amphetamines, which is just not great when you're controlling billions of dollars. And it gets worse when you realize that SBF had secretly added a, quote, backdoor into FTX's bookkeeping system. This came out just recently, which allowed SBF to, quote, execute commands that could alter the company's financial records without alerting other people. In other words, this is how we believe Sam moved $10 billion in funds from FTX to Alameda without alerting anyone. Later, it was reported that among this $10 billion, some of it also went missing from even Alameda, with Reuters reporting that $1 to $2 billion are unaccounted for, even among Alameda's assets, which again, it just all looks so bad for SBF. And from here, things spiral even worse, because once the dust started settling, we thought, okay, we're going to get a clearer picture now that they're entering bankruptcy. But then they suddenly got hacked in addition to everything. On Telegram, their admin says FTX has been hacked. All funds seem to be gone. FTX apps are malware. Delete them. This is just insane. How could this happen? CoinDesk reported that the hacker got out $600 million. And I have to tell you that some numbers are slightly less than that. 400 million from Slow Mist, for example. And this hack is being traced. So we don't know the full story right now, but it's a lot of money. So to state the obvious, this is very bad for FTX. And it also seems like pretty convenient timing for Sam, who has suddenly become unresponsive. So this fueled a lot of speculation. Now, Elon Musk decided to join the speculation, seeming to accuse Sam in a meme of being behind it all. He posted this: "Man F's 5 million people at once," which is a pretty good one. And basically this set off a frenzy of people frantically trying to unmask the hacker, eager to make it Sam or Caroline or even their CTO, Gary. For example, some people used the GitHub activity of Gary Wang to show that he did an unusual number of commits to his GitHub repo, basically saying he might have set up this sudden hack. And he did all this a day before FTX was hacked. And this for sure is very suspicious, but we need to be careful about rushing to conclusions. For example, Mario Nawfal accused the hacker of being an inexperienced insider because some of the funds were traced back to Kraken. And so people thought the mystery was solved when a Kraken executive said, "We know the identity of this user you guys pointed out." The problem is that it turned out there were actually two people who were operating at the time that this hack happened. The hacker and then the response team over at FTX. And the person using Kraken seems to have been the response team and not the hacker themselves. So it seems like a false identification there. So I get it. We all want to know who the hacker is, but we can't jump to conclusions here. And I'm going to try to be honest with you guys about what we know and what we don't. For now, let's just say the leading suspects are anybody at Alameda or FTX, and especially Sam himself, but we do not know for sure. Another thing we do not know, but people seem to be happy to claim as fact, is that SBF is fleeing the Bahamas and flying to Argentina. This could be true, we just do not know. Currently, the most tracked flight in the world is the one everyone suspects of being Sam, but we do not have concrete evidence. And that's going to be the final bit of speculation we entertain here, because there's infinite theories about how all this happened. All we know is that FTX is massively in debt and users are unlikely to get their funds back because They sent a lot of it to Alameda and seem to have lost it somehow. The most recent report, based on the bankruptcy filing, shows FTX held less than $1 billion in liquid assets against $9 billion in liabilities. So this hole is just so bad at this point. And I think that was actually pre-hack, so the real story is likely a lot more grim. And this has been a sad case study in trusting slick billionaires too quickly. And I think this story is only just getting started. Anyways, I hope that keeps you up to date, and hopefully we can edit this thing before all of this information goes out of date in 3 hours. Thanks for watching, and it's time for me to get some sleep.